Hello, everyone. Welcome inside the Red Earth Production Studios for another edition of YBMcast with Matt and Brian. And as always, we are joined, well, not always. He was on vacation. He was on assignment in Florida after you.
Yes. He's smart. We're smarter than you.
Yeah, evidently. You know, there you go. It'll be later. Anyhow, Kevin Moulder, Prep Baseball Report, Missouri. How you doing, Kevin?
Doing great.
Good. We got the baseball season started. We got tournaments happening. Got some rain today. I don't think there's going to be much baseball going on around here. I don't know about what the rest of the state. I don't know if it's covering what's covering, but I know around here we're not going to see much baseball today.
It's going to be tough to get out today. Maybe if it stops, Vianney or Chaminade possibly. But other than that, it's going to be tough sledding.
Both those Lutheran high schools down, I think south and north, they have turf too, I believe, don't they? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Is CBC's new one? Is it grass and dirt?
Natural.
That's
natural.
It's grass.
Yeah. Okay. So most everybody. Let's get into this. Let's look at some scores from what's been happening around. I'm not gonna go back too far. Just Monday.
Well, I think the biggest disappointment for us is that the CBC Timberland game never happened.
Right? I think that would have been great. Yeah, I agree.
But that's the game that I want to see. But because of weather, they never got it in, and now they're going to try to reschedule it at some point in the season, which will probably never happen. But I think because that was, as we talked last week, a good preview. So that was disappointing. But
yeah. And both teams were beating up on everybody. That's the other thing, too. Although I think Timberland got their first loss the other day.
MICDS beat them.
MICDS beat them. I think it was like 3-1.
Yeah.
And, so it's probably, that it's going to happen. You're going to get one of those here and there.
It's probably best that they lost the game.
I don't disagree.
And I think CBC, you look at their schedule because they're the other one that we're talking about.
Yeah.
They, I think, are going to need to lose a game somewhere for their.
They play break. They play 9 games in 1 week, including out in Vegas where they're playing.
Is that De La Salle and that's the All Faith Classic? Yeah.
Bishop Gorman. They will find some stiff competition, and then I don't care if you're the Cardinals or the Yankees. 9 games in a week. I don't know who has the pitching for that. So now they have a deep staff, but it would be hard pressed to say they'll come out of that 9-0.
Yeah, it's a good point, but it's good for them. Most people aren't familiar with De La Salle, which, Kevin, you're probably familiar with De La Salle to some degree. That is a California powerhouse over the years.
Yep.
So I think that's actually fun. That'd be a fun game. Good for them for actually traveling to do something like that.
Yeah, we talk about that all the time. It's one thing to run up a gaudy record, but I think at the end of the day, and there's a lot of coaches around that do this, Coach Perkins and many others, go out and challenge yourself. It's not about going 30-0. It's more about challenging yourself and finding out what you have and preparing yourself for the end of the season, and that's what a challenging schedule will do for you.
There you go. I agree. Class 4, Tuesday scores. There's one team that we talked about when we were talking about the districts was Southern Boone. They're off to a big start, 8-0. They just beat Blair Oaks 7-2 on yesterday. I know we're recording, so when I say yesterday, I should have said Tuesday. We'll just say Tuesday. There you go. So I think that's interesting. Nothing really. Kennett's off to kind of a slow start there. I think they haven't played much. They're 1-2, and I don't think they're finding much of a groove there as far as Class 4. Haven't seen a score yet from the St. Pius out of Kansas City there yet, so I don't know what's going on. Nothing in the Misha portal that I've seen so far from them. You heard anything about them and how they're doing there in Class 4?
I have not. I know Kennett has won some ball games. They've gone out and say this about Kennett. They're one of those teams that'll go out and challenge themselves. They went over and played some of the big hitters in Springfield, and they'll travel down to Tennessee and play teams down in Memphis. Because especially down their way, you'll see them. They'll go on a run where they'll win 15 games in a row, playing when they get into their conference or district play, if you will, and so they're challenging themselves early, which is good to see as well.
I think the same for Class 4 is Lutheran St. Charles. I think they've done a good job with their schedule. They ran into a 5A school that I think they had some problems with, but they're playing Jeff City. They've already played Dominic. So remember we talked about them, and they've had talent over the years.
Agreed.
So and they've got some good young players. I think I was interested in to see how they would do, and they're off to a good start in my mind. And
they've had a couple down years, so, could be coming back that way. And like you said, Jeff City's another one, dropped to that Class 5, but they're slow out of the gate. I think I saw they were 2-7 to start. So, again, they're playing tough schools, but it's kind of showing that they maybe have, not.
They were expecting a little bit of. They were expecting a little bit of a rebuild this year. They were very senior heavy. They have some good players, led by Connor Earlywine, but they're a younger group, and they'll be kind of reloading this year, I believe.
Yeah. Your fellas, we're talking Class 5. Some Maltese is off to a good start. They got beat yesterday in Washington. Close ball game, 4-2. Rockwood Summit took a beating from Howell yesterday, I think 8-2 as well. So a couple of teams there that are at that top end around here, Class 5. We'll see how they go. I mean, in Rockwood Summit, I still think they're going to be very good. It's tough if you're playing Howell anywhere.
Yeah, for me, Class 5 right now. Kind of the surprise, not so much of a surprise, is the start that Union is off to.
Really? I haven't seen that.
Yeah, they're 6-0. They beat Jeff City. They've played Lutheran St. Charles a couple times, St. Francis Borgia. But I don't care who you play. Mm-hmm. You play 6 games at the gate. I mean, you can only throw guys for so long.
Right.
So
right.
They're off to a good start.
That is the other interesting dynamic of early season play. A lot of times your pitchers aren't fully built up, so you're testing your pitching depth a little bit, and especially some of your higher end pitchers are only starting off with 50 pitches, then building to 60, 70, and onward. So you might see a team drop a game, and you're like, oh, wait a second, but they're kind of building up their pitchers, and so you can see some interesting results earlier in the season, especially.
A Class 4 school that's around here that I noticed is off to a big start is John Burroughs. They're undefeated. It's interesting. Parkway Central in the Class 5, they're off to a good start around here. They're 5-1. I think it's going to be interesting to see, as you said, what that turns into as these pitchers depth-wise. And to your point, Kevin, do you think some of these better records are pointing to teams with a little larger pitching depth than other schools?
Obviously, teams that have the pitching depth that favors them, and in my opinion, especially early, and especially when you see these tournament play. And a lot of these teams started in tournaments, and they might have that one guy, which is going to make them dangerous when come district time. But when you have to play 4 games in a week, you might see a team look like world beaters for a couple games and then lose 12-0 in a third game of the week or whatever. So it is it is a little tough to get teams figured out solely off the first week of the season.
And our defending state champs in Class 5, they're off to a good start, 5-1. So Glendale down there, I think, is with Class 5. They're right around. We'll see how they do. They just beat West Plains 12-3. But again, you know, when you start looking into Class 6 and you have the Midwest Classic going on right now. Parkway West took a big beating early on from CBC, right? But they're 5-1. And so I think they're in that Class 6. They're going to be fine, it looks like, right?
I saw them play yesterday versus Eureka, who was undefeated, and it was a great game, 2-1. And, you know, that's an example. Like Luke Wright started for Parkway West, who's their ace, big lefty going to Heartland. You know, but he only threw they had him on 50 pitches. They ended up winning the game 2-1 in a great game. Kid named Asher Sinker for Eureka threw 5 shutout innings for them. And good. Those are 2 really nice teams, Eureka and Parkway West, and they're going to be in the conversation, I'd imagine, throughout the year.
They're part of that the Midwest Classic tournament that's going on. That started, I think, Monday. I was watching Zumwalt West and Lafayette over at Fort Zumwalt West. Zumwalt West kind of found their footing. They won 6-0. They had a good game. Carson Clark threw pretty well for them. And I mean, he wasn't, I don't even know who the kid is. It's not one of their bigger arms. You had PJ Rogan. Lafayette is kind of wobbly. We'll see how they do. You got Cannon Stuckey behind the plate there. They've got some players. But they had opportunities. They just couldn't scratch any runs. I mean, every time they had an opportunity, I saw West turn like 3 or 4 double plays that got them out of trouble. So there you go.
Throw strikes, play defense, goes a long way.
It does, doesn't it?
They did that last year, though.
Yes.
Zumwalt West was really good at that last year.
Yeah.
Now, they had some, you know, obviously some more powerful named arms. But, I mean, anytime you watch them play, though, they do strikes and play defense.
Yeah. Yeah. Another big boy out of the West, Liberty, off to an 8-1 start. I mean, defending champs, Lee Summit North, which probably not one of the, I don't know much about them. They're off to, they don't look at, they beat them 13-0. So, I mean, there's that school there. I don't know how Liberty North is doing.
They're off to a strong start as well.
Okay.
I mean, I think the biggest question, or I shouldn't say question, surprise for me right now for the Class 6 is Liberty Winsville. We discussed this a little bit last week, but they lost again this week to Parkway South, 6-5. I mean, I know the big thing for us was, are they going to be able to score runs? Right now, it's just they need to try to just win some games to get some confidence.
Yeah.
Especially when you're going to be matched up against a Howell, a Timberland. Holt's actually playing good ball. So
right.
I don't know. I think I'm more shocked than anything else.
I don't disagree. Your thoughts? Have you seen him yet, Kevin? Liberty?
I have not. I know they're having trouble. They're obviously off to a shockingly poor start, and we were all excited about their pitching, which I know they still have some good arms. They lost yesterday. I know Seth Bennis was up to 93 miles per hour for him in that game. But yeah, you look at them now; they're 1-5, and it's not going to get a ton easier for those guys because they play in an unforgiving league, obviously. So they'll have to get things sorted out here in a hurry.
Well, I think this goes to the point we were talking about with the depth. It doesn't look like, because when we looked at that one game Bennis had thrown well. And I can't see if he's thrown up there this way. It's after that when they're coming out. If they're hitting those pitch limits, they don't seem to have the depth to be able to hold the leads.
Yeah, but or score runs.
Right?
I mean, if you scoring runs solves a lot of problems.
Agreed.
And it makes you not look at maybe some issues you have when you're putting up 10, 12 runs a game.
Well, and I'm going to look at some standings here. This is the GAC South standings so far. It may be a little not quite as up to date, but still, and it kind of gives you a telltale sign here. Timberland at the top. I think they're 7-1. They won yesterday again, big. But they've scored 8 runs. They're scoring 8 runs a game. 57 runs total, and only giving up 3 per game. So that right there tells you exactly what you're talking about, right? And Zumwalt West right behind them, 7-2, 7, almost 8 runs a game, 7.89, and giving up less than 3, 2.67 runs a game. So, I mean, these are the top 2 teams so far. Howell is right behind him with 7 runs a game, 2.7 on defense. So those 3 teams right there, you think about that. If you can't score runs against Howell, West, and Timberland, you're not going to beat them. And they're not giving up a lot of runs.
No, and I think that for Timberland, I think it's next week they have the Tuesday, Wednesday matchup with Troy. So that'll be interesting to kind of see how Troy matches up. But I don't. You're talking about. I mean, we're still talking about Liberty to some degree. I just don't. They got to score some runs, or they got to change something.
We're going to come back. Well, here's another one too. In that Francis Howell North, they're off to a good start. They haven't had a good start in a while. They're 4-2. They're only scoring 3.3 runs a game, and giving up 3.83 runs a game. So, I mean, they're not. We'll see when they get into some of the conference play and what that brings. I think that'll be interesting that way. As you said, Holt's right there behind them. Troy Buchanan, 5-3. France South Central, 4-3. This is just going to be a brutal division in this conference. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. We'll see, because everybody right now is above 500.
Yeah, no, I mentioned this about Holt. I don't know, a few weeks ago. That's a team to watch out for. They got some seniors on that team that have been around for a while. They're winning some games early. They don't have, 4 or 5 big D1 players. They've got good ball players, and they've been together for a while. So they can beat some teams. That's a team.
Right. The only team that I think is kind of still suspect, and you probably see towards is Howell North, just for the simple fact of their run scoring and runs given up. Everybody else is higher, and the only one close in the differential other than that is France South Central at 6.29, and they're giving up 6 runs a game. So I think that'll be interesting as that goes on. You got the GAC Central standings. East is there at 5-1. Then and they still have. I got to go back and look at this, because they got Francis Howell North in the Central standings, and I think that's correct, isn't it?
If it's on there, I'm sure, but I have no idea.
I think Howell North is in the Central, not in they're not. Yeah, not in the North or the South. I should say the South. I could be wrong. I got to go look. This is just from STL High School Sports. So they got Troy Buchanan here as well in the GAC Central, which Troy Buchanan's in the South. So we know that's incorrect. So you guys got to fix that. We're going to need to send them a note. Hey, take that out. Anyhow.
Good luck.
Yeah, good luck. But you got East there at the top. Washington's 4-4. Zumwalt South 2-2. Zumwalt North 2-4. Liberty at the bottom there. I think this is going to be interesting once it gets into conference play. You guys' thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I agree, and it is fun watching the teams get out of the gates, and you learn a little bit. But like we talked about, as guys build their pitch counts, and we get into a little more consistent weather, and guys playing 3 games a week, and you'll kind of learn what we got as we get into a more consistent routine, I'd say.
Yeah, and just what we were talking about, Matt. Liberty's scoring 4 runs a game and giving up 8.
It's not a good combination.
No, that's how you end up that's how you end up 1-5. No offense. I mean, it's just the truth. That's just the way it goes. So, and then the last in the GAC, of course, is over in the GAC North. St. Charles is off to a good start there. Warrenton behind them, Orchard Farms, then Winfield, St. Charles. So that's kind of around the state, around the GAC, what we're looking at. Any other thoughts on?
I'm just curious to see, as Kevin said, get some good weather, see where everybody's at once they start getting, their 3-4 games a weekend and get the schedule actually moving and shaking.
Yeah, I think we're maybe a couple weeks from that still yet. The way the weather patterns are shaping up. Because it's supposed to rain this week and into next week. So we'll see.
Turf.
My man. That's what I'm saying.
Bingo.
Guys, it's Missouri, right?
Preach it all the time.
Yeah. So let's talk about this. Kevin, you got some new rankings, 2023 player rankings. You just released for the state of Missouri. I said that, didn't I?
Whoa.
That was bad, Brian. It's just funny.
That was. I mean, are we on a Illini chat room board here or a KU chat room here?
That's what they would say, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
Brian's have to move.
I was born in Southern California, man. So there you go. But anywho, let's talk a little bit about these kids, okay?
Sure.
I mean, is there any question who number 1 is and why?
Well, we know who number 1 is. I mean, you've had Hatchman up there for quite a while,
Hatchman's the number 1 since he was 13.
Has he really?
Well,
I
honestly,
don't know.
that is not true. Hatchman is Hatchman's a nice story. He is number 1, and I think he's like number 4 or 5 nationally. One thing about Adam Hatchman, you look at what he is now, and he's up to 97 miles per hour and whatnot. I was talking to his father. He was a guy that was not a good Little League player, bench player, and even as a freshman in high school wasn't great. He threw 84 miles per hour as a sophomore and kind of exploded this past 18 months or so to be where he's at. And it's happened in a hurry. But it is, something for younger guys to look at. Things can change in a hurry, and just because you're the best player as a freshman certainly doesn't mean you're going to be the best player when you're a junior. And if you're kind of at the bottom of the barrel or the last guy on the roster on your freshman team, keep working hard. And, one thing he's done is committed himself to the weight room. He's added about 30 pounds of muscle. Now he's a long, lean framed guy. So he's 6'4", 6'5". So there's room to put that muscle on. But he's obviously our number 1 guy. One thing that's striking to me about this 2023 class, in my opinion, is the deepest and most talented of the classes we have in high school right now. It's really impressive, because you look at the whole. I mean, you could go down to spot number 50, and we're still talking about Division I commits, and our top 4 guys in the class, and probably a little further, are legitimate draft prospects. Nizan Zanatello over at CBC is a high-end talent, super athletic, big-time runner. Will Leopard was up to 94 already this spring at a jamboree, lefty from Blair Oaks. And then Tate McGuire over in Kansas City, the Arkansas commit, a 6'3" right-hander that's been up to 93. So you got those 4 guys right off the top. And then you quickly follow them up with guys like Cam Poe and Dane Bourne and Norfleet, and our 10th rated player is going to LSU. So it just talks about the depth of the class. And then you sneak down just a little bit, like Seth Bennis has been a high riser here. He's been shooting, his star's been ascending quickly. And I'll just go down the list a little bit, like Caden Bogenpool from Jackson, Missouri. He's 6'6" and up to 92, and he's ranked in the 20s. So it in other classes, some of these guys would be top 3, top 5 players. And it's not, these rankings are obviously subjective. This is one guy's opinion on it. If different guys would have them slightly different, I would say. But there's no denying, like Kenton Deverman. I really like Kenton Deverman. He's at Fort Zumwalt West. He is a high pitchability guy, committed to University of Evansville. Now he's not super sexy. He's going to be in the low 80s. That's what he is. He tops out at 84. But man, if you have to face him in a game, you're in big time trouble. He's 81, 84 with a big time curveball plus feel for his changeup, 3-pitch mix. Anytime, any count, any pitch could come, and he's ranked 53rd in the state, going to a good, a solid Missouri Valley program. So this is a really, really strong class is my takeaway from this 2023 class.
You remember last year we were talking about this group.
Yeah.
You said that the 23 class for Missouri is loaded, and it is. And just to give you an idea on the talent at CBC, the top 13 kids, 3 of them are at CBC.
Yeah.
Donatello, Poe, Pierre.
Top 13. Jeez.
And then that's not including the 22 class with Charlton.
Right.
So,
right.
Or when you stroll down, maybe a little lower, there's, some other kids that are very good baseball players, like Orion Stevens. But just to say, I've been getting a lot of crap about the CBC bandwagon.
No, there's
not from
no
you
reason.
or from Kevin, but I was getting crap about the CBC bandwagon. The team is just, they're loaded. It's a loaded baseball
If
team.
anybody wants, it's for real.
And they're playing well.
Yeah.
But
and nobody, people want to give you crap because it's CBC and they're always there. But yeah, they are. Look at that.
Well, right now, for sure. The other kid that I was going to mention on here that I know, take number 19, Tommy Lepore. He's going to Cincinnati, right-handed arm out of Kansas City area. He's a really good pitcher. He's a really good arm. And Cincinnati's changing conferences, so they're going to be a Power 5 here in a couple of years, but if not sooner. So that program is another one that's picked up the pace a lot in the last couple of years, and he's a really good player, and he's at 19.
Yeah. Well, I think that's another interesting point here. When you look it up and down this, and you say, Arkansas, Missouri, you understand whatnot, but look at that: Duke, LSU, Kansas, Purdue, Iowa, Cincinnati. There's another Kansas, Indiana State, Wichita State.
Wichita State's actually doing a very good since they got a new
they're
coach.
Getting back to it.
Their recruiting classes have been a lot better.
They have facilities and whatnot, but look at that: New Mexico State. There's another Wichita State, Arkansas, Little Rock, SLU. As you said, Kenton Deverman at Evansville, Eastern Illinois. There's so much. It's not just
Missouri State.
Right. There is so much diversity in this group and where they're going. It's really amazing to me how much from around the nation this class, and I think that proves to that point how good these kids are, right?
Yeah, and Missouri State is some of these kids might not remember, but there was a couple years when Missouri State was getting all of the kids that were going to Mizzou.
Mm-hmm.
And then they had their run in the baseball tournament. They were doing very well. They are not far from that again. I'm not saying they're going to take all the kids that are going to Mizzou. Mizzou's in the SEC. That's a different ballgame now than it was before. But most state has some good new young coaches that's an up and coming in-state program right now. Not that they need to be up and coming. They've always been good.
Yeah,
but
they've always
getting back to where they were years ago, and Kevin probably remembers as well. When
Wichita State was going to the College World Series.
Yeah, that's Wichita State has historic, but most state they're that's something to watch out for in a couple of years to see where that program goes, because they're getting some really good kids.
Kevin, when you talk about these guys like a Hatchman, the top 5 there, what goes into that thought process looking at college to being drafted? What would you, that's a big decision. You're 18 and say like a Hatchman, as you said, you're talking to his dad where he's just now coming into this. What's a better thought process there?
So I'm in favor of the college route for 99.9% of the kids. I think it's proven the college route is statistically the way to go. And you've seen that a little bit in the draft. Colleges will favor or pro teams will favor some of the college guys because they're just getting a more known quantity. It's less of a gamble. Now it's starting to swing back a little bit the other way because some of the high school guys are being undervalued. But a guy like Adam Hatchman, he's going to have a real decision to have to make because he's going to potentially, if things stay on track, that can be an amount of money that's life-changing. And if you're a first rounder or a top 50 pick, top 100 pick, Carter Jensen over in Kansas City last year, you get 7 figures. That's something that turns into a family decision, and there is no right or wrong answer. So he's going to have that. Other than those type of guys, unless there's an extreme reason, like my dad played in the big leagues, he had a huge contract, I'm just going to sign because I want to sign, or maybe you're not a college guy. Academically, college isn't a fit for you. Maybe that's the type of guy that signs as well. But for a majority of these guys, what's changed is colleges do such a great job developing guys now. The weight rooms, the strength programs are first class. The facilities are nicer than the ones they'll play in pro ball until they get to at least AA. So some of how they take care of these guys is ridiculous. And there was that upheaval in minor league baseball that was in some of the bargaining stuff about how they were feeding those guys and whatnot. So truthfully, the higher levels of college baseball are treated better than the minor league guys. So from a development standpoint, unless you're one of those top 100 picks or so, or there's a reason specifically to sign from a personal standpoint, college can be a great avenue to improve your stock. You knock out 2 to 3 years of school, depending on if you go to junior college or to the 4-year level. And then you got another crack at pro ball. So, but everyone's going to see that a little bit differently. And, a guy like Adam, he's represented by the Boris Corporation Group. So Scott Boris is his agent. So he's in more than good hands. And he'll get plenty of direction. Kevin's right. You're talking about either you're a top round guy, or the amount of money that you get offered, your family makes the decision, do we turn this down?
Mm-hmm.
because you may never have an opportunity in your life to make this much money. You can always go back to school. And a lot of these contracts, they pay for you to go back to school.
Yes.
If you sign.
Chase Krogman talked to us about that.
But you get somebody like, and I don't know Chase's situation, but let's pick somebody else. Say they're not a school person, or say they get drafted in, let's say, the 12th round. Because the draft has changed, and cutting out a lot of the minor league steps because of COVID, and there's not as many people in there now as there used to be.
Right.
But if you're a 13th round guy, I'm probably not going to go. I'm going to go to Mizzou or Mo State or wherever you're going. Well, what if first guy signs, second guy signs, well, their third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth round guys don't sign. Now, instead of saying, hey, here's 45, 50 grand, here's 500 grand, we need you. Like, then you just say, that's a completely different situation. So,
and you still can get back to school because in the contract, you have your school paid for. I mean, that's an interesting thought process.
But there's a lot, like, take some of these people watching or might not know Kyle McClellan. Like, you remember Kyle McClellan, pitched for the Cardinals, won a World Series. He was supposed to go to Mizzou. He was a more of a later round guy. Well, he went to the draft out of high school because people below him didn't sign. So there was more money there for him. And how do you turn that down? Because you may never make that much money again in your life. So everyone's
the baseball
unique.
Draft and the NHL hockey draft are the two craziest drafts. And guy picked like the Pirates, for example, picked like with the second overall pick last year, picked a guy that was like all the publications and not just PBR, like had ranked outside the top 30, and they picked him because he was signing for $2 million. And then they took the other signing money and applied it to guys a little further down the list. So it is crazy. And like, I'm not going to mention names here, but like, as I go through my 22 class rankings, there's a couple guys that from Missouri that'll have a chance to sign or get drafted. And one guy, I'm hearing a number, and I might view him as slightly ahead of another guy, but he's put out a number, and I'm like, well, he's probably going to go to college. Then there's a guy a little lower down the list, and it sounds like he might get drafted and sign because his number looks a little bit different than the other guy. So sometimes a guy might go, like if Adam Hatchman said, I'm going to only sign for $20 million or I'm going to school, and they can't even sign a guy for 20, then he's not going to get drafted, or he might get drafted in the fourth round. Whereas if Nazan Zanatello, and he's not going to do this, said, I'll sign for 100 grand, then he might go in the second round because someone will, sign him, and then they'll save the $1 million of the signing slot and be able to use it for other places. So the Major League Baseball draft is a wild draft. It doesn't make sense in a lot of ways to an outside observer, but it does make sense if you kind of know all the ins and outs of it.
Which also goes to why there's a big push to get the Puerto Rican kids at younger ages, Dominican kids at younger ages, because for one, you can get them early, and you can get them for some, well, not all of them, but some of you get them for pretty inexpensive, and you just get them in the system. Where people in the States, it's a little different because they need more money, because now with the college program specifically, I mean, let's say Zanatello wanted to sign for 100 grand. They draft him in the second round. Well, he's like, I'm not going to sign for that.
Yeah. Understand.
So
that makes sense.
I mean, look at Rocker from Vanderbilt.
And Zanatello, to be clear, obviously I wasn't suggesting he is a high-end prospect.
Yeah, he's one of the best players in the country.
Just using that as an example.
Correct. He's one of the best players in the country for the 23 class.
Well,
but look at Rocker from Vanderbilt.
Yeah, exactly.
Great example, Matt.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And just to kind of finish this, and then I want to look at one last thing before we get it done here. But let me ask you this, because you see Seth Bennis down. He's rising now. Would Seth Bennis be a kid that would maybe go more towards signing because his dad's been through those things rather than maybe if he's not looking just to go to school, that would be maybe something that you might see there, that just because of the benefit of his dad, correct?
So Seth, that Andy is his uncle. His dad did play pro ball.
I'm
and
sorry.
His other uncle
I'm sorry.
played. So his uncles are Andy and Alan. They both made the big leagues, of course, and his dad is Adam, who played pro ball.
Yeah.
So there's a family that understands pro ball inside and out. Seth is a smart kid, so he very well might end up with an opportunity to be a draft, and that'll be a family decision, certainly. But that's a good example, of a guy that might just, but you never know. Jack Leiter's son, or Al Leiter's son, Jack, went to Vanderbilt and turned himself into a, what was it, man, a top 5 pick? Or
yeah, he probably didn't even have to go to Vanderbilt. I mean, he could have probably been drafted in the first couple rounds.
So let's finish up today by talking. We've got these class rankings. We got these top 5 guys here, and they're really good baseball players in this. You're talking about 23 class? Yeah, the 23 class. What kind of impact are they having on their teams this year? Go ahead, Kevin.
Obviously an important one. And every player on this list is so important to the team. But if I had to pick just one guy who's the most important for his team, I would pick Will Leopard. He's a two-way performer. He bats in the middle of their lineup, plays a great center field. He could play collegiately as an outfielder, in my opinion, at some levels. But obviously his bread and butter's on the mound, and he's, got a great future on the mound. But, there's a guy that, is so important to his team. A guy like Nazan Zanatello. We've talked about the depth and the talent at CBC. Naz is, arguably the best positional player in the state from a talent standpoint. Mm-hmm. But CBC is so loaded, you take a player like Naz out, they're still going to be really good. Now I'm not saying they don't want – Naz is a special talent. So he's not as important to his team as a Will Leopard or if that makes sense, or a guy like Dane Bourne, who's a notch below like the top 5. That's a linchpin for that Lindbergh team. So it is interesting because if you have a team full of talented guys, the good player, it does help because you kind of protect a guy. It's like in the big leagues, they always try to find protection for the Barry Bonds or the Albert Pujols when he's with the Cardinals. It's like, well, if you're the man and then you got another guy behind him, then that just lets Barry Bonds or Albert Pujols be more productive. But if it's just one guy on an island, it can kind of get tough and lonely,
Thoughts?
I can't argue with anything he just said. So I think he's spot on. He's right.
Well, and I like the fact that you went because Blair Oaks, it's
a two-way guy.
4,
but it's a two-way guy.
Exactly. You're dealing with that situation. And as you pointed out, you got CBC. There's 2 other guys in that top 13 there. Caden Peer, who is. But as a team, that's a great situation to be in. To be able to take a guy out and not skip a beat. Now, you might miss a little bit of a beat, but you take one guy out. You got so much talent where let's take Will Leopard out, but let's take Howell's shortstop, McCutcheon. You take him out.
McCutcheon,
You're talking about not only a senior leader,
right,
but a Division I shortstop.
You've got a good, Ty Sissel has played shortstop, could go in there, but is he ready for that spotlight?
But there's a leadership role with the senior that's been there.
Right.
And but that's his point with Will Leopard. It's the same situation. Will Leopard's only a junior, but I guarantee you he's got a leadership role on that team.
Yeah.
The other guy that came to mind when you put out this question, and he's a 2022 that Will Leopard's comp would be, not from a playing style or talent, but Daniel Whistler's kind of that guy for Zumwalt West. He's they have to have him on offense. He's a dynamic center fielder. His future's on the mound, and they need him to be legit on the mound and in the lineup and in center field. It's just those type of guys are so important. Adam Hatchman, he can change the game, but he pitches once a week. A guy like Whistler, a guy like Will Leopard, Braden Hemmer over at Columbia Hickman's a starting infielder and pitcher. Those guys are, so productive for their high school teams. And there's some more. Tanner Paschke at Zumwalt North. And that would be maybe an example of a guy that, not talk about the other part of the roster, but is on a little bit of an island by himself. And you put him see him in a summer environment, and you're like, man, this guy's really good. In the springtime, you see him and he's having to do everything, and maybe the velocity's down a little bit because he's playing shortstop.
Yeah, it's like the
time.
Josh Newell effect that we talked about over the last year.
Yep.
Right. Yeah.
Yep.
I think, and that's the difference in high school baseball, the dynamics of that when you see these players at these different levels. I mean, because as you pointed out, CBC is just at a different level as far as that is concerned. And it plays more like a college team.
Right now.
Right?
Right. Right now.
Yeah.
Just because of the depth. And
2 years from
talent.
now, it may be Hal. It may be West. It may be somebody else.
And that I think that's the thing. I ain't gonna go there. Never mind. I ain't gonna say that. That's
and I know what you were kind of hinting at, but you go to the other side of the state. Liberty and Liberty North have that type of talent as well. So they can compete. In Zumwalt West last year,
Yes.
had that type of team. With their pitching last year was unbelievable. Whistler, now he was injured, but they had 2 Division I pitchers not pitch a ton for him, but with Deverman and Whistler. So now Whistler, if he was healthy, would have been a major part of the equation, but he wasn't, and they were still really high end with him out.
And they're right back in it this year. I mean, what I saw yesterday out of West looked a lot like last year. Really just solid baseball. I mean, defense up the middle. Those double plays they turned were solid. It looked good. I mean, it's good baseball. So I'm interested to see how that plays out. But there you go, guys. That's good stuff. I like that conversation. I want to talk a little bit more about these things as we go through this. Start looking at maybe next week we'll look at the next 10, 12 guys down there on this 23 because it is loaded, and I think you have to. From Norfleet, which as we've talked about, we're talking about all these people, and here's Brett Norfleet, who, in my opinion, watching him play the other day, is one of the best looking athletes I've seen.
Oh,
my goodness.
You're going to be hard pressed to find a better athlete there.
The way he runs, everything, man, is just unbelievable. That guy, I'd like to see. I haven't seen him play football, and I'd like to see him play football because I think it would be good. So, Kevin, thanks, man. I appreciate the knowledge, bro.
Absolutely. It was a lot of fun.
Matt? Boom.
As always.
Good stuff. We'll catch up with the summer as we get closer. We got some great stuff coming up. Kevin, when's your next high school rankings coming out?
I'm going to have my 2024 high school rankings come out at the end of the week. And then starting Monday, so a half week from now or whatever that is, we'll start our weekly rankings. So we kind of give it 2 weeks with the weather, and it's kind of tough to re-rank teams after they've played 2 or 3 games, and it's almost going to stay the exact same. But by next Monday, they'll all have hopefully 6 to 12 games in, depending on the team and the school. So we'll have something to go off of there, and we'll start cranking those out once a week.
Sweet, there it is. All right. Guys, thanks as always. Appreciate you being on the show. We hope you enjoyed that. I didn't do my comments or anything. Did you put the comments up? I got to get that. I even had it written down in here, but I didn't have my show notes up that way. So look, see, comment, hit the like button below. Didn't do it. Comment though. Tell us what you think. We appreciate it. Hit the like button, and we appreciate that as well. Everybody have a great day in the Lord. All you pitchers, keep throwing strikes, and you hitters,
Hit them where they ain't.
and that's good advice. We'll see you next time.